Hello, this is John from Breaducation, and today's video is a demonstration of how you can use a scale to understand the type of bread dough you are making or the type of bread dough someone is presenting to you. With this understanding, you will be able to relate to different bread doughs and know what they will be good for and what they you will know what bread doughs will be best for. I'm making a basic sourdough variety with let's get started. What we have here is a scale, a mixing bowl, and that is 41 grams of sourdough culture. I suggest using anywhere between 10 and 20% of old dough. Another word for it is mother dough. I guess that's two words. Another phrase for old dough is mother dough. There's pâté fermenté from the French. Madre, I think both the Spanish and the Italian speakers use madre. And it's been the original type of sourdough in most baking cultures. Again, we're starting with 40 grams. I'm adding 300 grams of water. There are many benefits to using a scale: accuracy, speed, and in this case, you can see, I don't know if you can see, but that is 307 grams. You can be accurate. I'm not demonstrating the accuracy of it today. I'm demonstrating how you can use it to understand your bread dough. To this 300 grams of water, I'm going to add 400 grams of flour. There's two ways you can do it. You can just add it on top and add the 400 to the 300, or you can press the tare button and add 400 grams of flour. So there's 402. Next, I'm adding 8 grams of salt. You can tare it or add it on top. Most recipes will tell you to mix the wet ingredients and the dry ingredients and then mix the wet and the dry. You can see that there is salt up top. I like to start by giving it a shake or a little stir to distribute the salt, and then simply giving this enough agitation to wet all the flour particles. This is typically referred to as a shaggy dough. Takes hopefully under 2 minutes. I guess it depends on your wrist strength. Also, how much dough you're making. I do this with this size batch of dough, which will yield you about a 1.5 pound loaf. And there you have it. You can see that there are no dry particles anywhere in that. From here, you're just to cover it and let it rest. Resting is a common term, serves several purposes. It allows the protein strands that are very springy to relax, so they're less springy. Also, in this case, it allows the flour to hydrate and the enzymes to start activation. Also, it allows it to proof and recover from rough treatment. All of those are covered in the term resting. But just like the rest of us, your dough will often benefit from a rest period. In order to provide a little context, I'm going to do the same dough in a slightly different way, which is 750 milliliters of water. That's a little bit better. 1,000 grams of bread flour. For this, I like to tare it. Would be a little bit more accurate than the first time around. 750 on point, 1,000. Now I'm going to skip adding the salt for after the flour and the water hydrate, then rest for, say, 30 minutes. It's a rest period. It's called autolyzation, and I don't have strong evidence or feelings one way or another. Half an hour, 20 minutes, something like that. This will take 2 to 3 minutes. In the meantime, we're going to measure out our salt. We're using 20 grams of salt. For the math whizzes, you'll probably recognize that these are exactly the same ingredients in the same proportions. It's just 2.5 times more in the mixing bowl. Saves your wrist. Again, 20 grams of salt. And this is about 100 grams of sourdough culture. So we're adding the salt and the culture. And we're going to allow this to autolyse, to rest for half an hour. Then we'll do a little bit more mixing and move on to bulk fermentation. Let me demonstrate how to do the second stretch and fold. Getting started, you have a wet hand. My hand is wet, but a little bit extra. Reach in and pick this up, stretch it out, fold that underneath, and then over the top. Turn this 90 degrees, do it again. 90 degrees, stretch and fold. Now the last time, stretch underneath it. Leave this so all the floppy bits are tucked underneath and you have a nice rounded dome surface. If you happen to be working with a larger size and or it would be useful to see this demonstrated with a larger batch of dough, let me do that for you now. My hand is drying up. It's a little bit dry this time of year. Gonna reach in here, scoop underneath, lift that up, stretch underneath, lay it down. Same thing here. You can see in the center line, the end has been stretched underneath the center line. This end also has been stretched underneath. Now I'll do it again. So it's a 4-way fold, 5, 6 ways. Turning it to the side. Doing it again. Okay, this is actually well late into the day doing the stretch and fold, but better late than never. I always advocate that you are in charge of your dough rather than your dough being in charge of you. This is in good shape. I am going to, actually with the size of this dough and how light and fluffy it is, and with my potential schedule for recording in the morning, I think I'm going to put these in the refrigerator, which will retard, it will slow the fermentation process. That is all for now. Let's take a look and see how these two basic dough recipes have progressed and fermented. First case, this is the 700 gram pile of bread dough, and you can see pretty jiggly, little bit fragile from the way it jiggles. It's got a nice dome top. If you look at the sides and the bottom, large alveoli, which is a bit over fermented. We're going to invert it. You can slam it down, but that'll make a big plume of flour. We're going to invert it and take a look again at the air pockets, alveoli, that are showing underneath. Quite large air pockets. You can see us pulling away. I typically don't disturb it because more you handle this, especially when it's a little bit over fermented, more it's going to collapse. If you're using the mother dough method, which I suggest is the only method I use, just take a scraper and whack off about 10% of your pile of dough. In this case, it should be around 75 grams. This is probably about 50. Oh, it's 80. Okay, so there we go. Now we're going to drop this in the bowl. We'll use this as our culture for next time. Until the next time, simply cover this up and put it in the refrigerator. When you put it in the refrigerator, that will stay active enough that you will be able to use it in up to 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Back to our dough ball here, simply pick this up to form a loaf and pick up these edges. You can see it's very delicate. This is a little bit over fermented for my preference. Just pinch all these floppy ends together, invert it. Inverting it will cause the weight of the dough to hold down all those creases and folds. That will seal itself up. And moving on, again, this is effectively the same exact dough. You can see how jiggly that is. Very well over fermented. It still has a rounded dome top, which is good. It will maybe rise up even higher, a little bit higher, but it will eventually start to collapse. When it's collapsing, the amount of gluten present has all been transformed due to the naturally occurring enzymes in the culture and the flour. The gluten has transformed into peptides and amino acids, losing its strength and structure, and your dough will start to collapse. It will still produce good bread, but it won't be as high. It'll be flat and probably noticeably more flavorful, more nutritious. But again, and you can see the center section there is starting to collapse. I prefer it at a lower rate of fermentation, a smaller size, a tighter domed surface up top. We're going to do the same thing here. And before we do that, we're going to pick up this dough ball, which was the non-Autolyse piece of dough, and we're going to weigh that. This is 673 grams. We want to get a portion of this bulk fermented dough, very large alveoli, and it just flops out of here. So we're looking for, what, 673? 673 grams. Let's see if we can whack off an equivalent section here. 673 grams. Let's see how close this is. That is 750. 650. 680. That's close enough for my 671. So this is slightly smaller than that as per weight. Volume's anyone's guess, but moving it around, especially at such a high floppy level of fermentation, it's noticeably smaller. Now, this has been formed up into a boule, exactly the way I did that. What we're going to do here is bias this one to a long shape here. Let's put that right up on top. All right, so this is relatively long and straight. I'm going to fold this edge to the center. I did the same exact thing with the boule, except it was the center point. This is a center line. And with this, I'm going to fold it to the center and pinch all that together. Classic baguette shape. You can see that right after I pinched those seams together, I rolled it over to have the weight of the dough pressing down on the seam. With this, I'm going to start by reserving a section of dough for my mother dough and putting that in here. This is, again, your culture. Saving that will eliminate the hassle of mixing it up in a jar and feeding it daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it is your normal schedule is. This will be good when covered and put back in the refrigerator to perpetuate my next batch of sourdough culture just from this. Again, cover it in the refrigerator for easily 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Now this will be the third shape here. This video is not really about shaping loaves, but since I have a nice portion of dough, I'll do all three. So this one, the scale is turned off. This scale shuts down in such a short period. It's a real hassle. All right, so this is 458 grams. So that's just over a pound. This is about a pound and a half. This is quite a bit bigger, non-Autolyse. Part of the reason why it's bigger, you can see these blisters on the side. I'm going to pierce those. And part of it is that I wasn't mistreating it to such a great extent. With these, I'm going to allow them to rest on the counter. The purpose of resting is simply to have the seams seal up. And in the meantime, while these are resting, I'm going to preheat the oven. I'll be back in about a half an hour. The oven is preheated and we have 4 loaves of dough ready to get baked. Is to get these up on a pan. You want to be careful at this stage. If these loaves are sticking to the counter, they're probably a little moist and they'll likely stick to your pan. When they stick to the pan, there's a greater chance to burn. So one trick you can do, sprinkle a little bit of flour around here. Take your scraper and you can just push that flour underneath, making sure it helps to use the scraper to slide it under there and lift it up. Again, with this, in this case, I'm pushing it over top of that little field of flour. Put it on here and see if we have a little bit of space. Again, this is, I feel it's a little bit sticky. So we'll just push that underneath. Space. All right, now the next step is to use this razor. In bread lingo, it's called a lom. Score this, which inhibits a nice decorative, known as oven spring. You don't have to be so boring with this. You can do something like pierces. If you leave that bubble on there, it's quite thin. It'll be the first thing to dry out. After it dries out, it'll be the first thing that cooks. This being larger has expanded quite a bit. This is collapsed, so there might be additional proofing to get out of that. So over here, little decorative scoring on there with a big one there. There is no correct thing that needs to happen. You definitely want to induce a weakness in the crust to move up when it's in the oven. But again, you can do straight lines, decorative flourishes, swirlies, whatever you like. I'm going to throw this in the preheated oven, 500 degrees. I'm going to pull it out after 12 minutes, maybe rotate it, make sure it's not sticking, and then back in the oven for another 12 minutes. I am going to put a little bit of water in a cast iron skillet that I have in the bottom of the oven that will induce a more baking environment, which is not the topic of this video, but it's a good thing to do. You can check my other videos for the reason and why you would do something like that. I'm going to throw these in the oven and I'll be back short look at what we have here. First of all, I want to show you this beautiful batard. It came out of the oven after 24 minutes, along with this baguette. Beautiful. And this is surprising to me because normally the Autolyse dough, which is this one here, proofs up bigger, forms up bigger than the hand mix. This is hand mix without the Autolyse. Side-by-side comparison is right here. This is substantially bigger, and both beautiful. You can see here the wheat motif, big open oven spring. This one, equal amount of oven spring, probably more because it has the 3 radial slashes on there. And that's quite a bit of oven spring. This is definitely bigger, a little bit of an ear, a little bit dark on this side. I rotated it, so this is maybe the back of the oven. Halfway through, I rotated it here and try to even out the color. It's always a good idea. This is beautiful, a little bit of a blistered crust. I like the variation between the dark and the light, and that'll make a beautiful dinner roll, sandwiches, whatever. And again, this will be great for little sandwiches, little tostinis, whatever you want. And beautiful loaves. This has been a demonstration and a comparison of both the hand mix method, 400 grams of flour, 300 grams of water, and these 3 in the 750 grams of water, 1,000 grams of flour. Now, something that you'll notice is that this 300, 400, 3 over 4 is 3/4. Another way of expressing that is 75%. This loaf was 75% hydration. This loaf came from the dough, 75% hydration. These 3 right here came from the mixer, and the mixer had 750 grams of water, 1,000 grams of flour. Again, that is 75%. Effectively, this dough was exactly the same. They both had 2% salt, 8 grams for this one here, 8 grams. So 2% relative to 400 grams is 4 grams for 1%, 8 grams for 2%. For these 3,000 grams of flour, 10% is 10 grams, or 1% is 10 grams, 2%, 20 grams, 20 grams of salt in this batch, 8 grams this. So, and again, the sourdough culture in the large batch was, I think it was like 120 versus this thing. So 120 over 1,000 is 12%. This was, I think, 41 grams. So that's right at 10%, 10, 12%. I say 10 to 20% mother dough relative to the flour. And so effectively, both these were exactly the same. Now, whenever you look at a recipe, you can simply divide it if necessary. Sometimes the math is obvious, it stands out, and understand what type of dough you will have. For lean dough, which is flour, water, and salt, 75% hydration will make baguettes, batards, and boules. And it will also bake up a nice focaccia. So that one dough, you can use it for anything. If you have, say, 1,000 grams of flour and 600 grams of water, that would be a 60% dough. That would work for bagels, pretzels, baguettes, pizzas, and you start getting up towards the boules, and it will really kind of flatten out. But it'll be great for lower hydration types of bread. If you start using a higher percentage of water, say 80-85% water relative to the flour, if you're using 850 grams of water for 1,000 grams of dough, you're going to end up with dough that is more suitable for boules, focaccias, or ciabattas, your flatter breads. I will include a chart of the different hydrations and how well they work for different styles of bread. So that is in the video description. If you like this video, you would like to bake with me, I have a bake along every month, and you're welcome to follow the link below and register. It's completely free, and find out the next scheduled bake along and join me. I will answer all your questions, starting with the questions you post here. If there is time during the public bake along, I will answer your questions directly. Otherwise, this has been a production of Breaducation. Until next time, let us give thanks for our daily bread.